What isn't a cult but feels like a cult? I live in Orlando and Disney people are crazy. Mommy groups. And even specific groups. Like a cult within a cult. Joined a cloth diapering group. I was excommunicated for using Pampers at night. Breastfeeding? If you aren't nursing till 4? Bye. Audi ownership, at least in the UK. I had an Audi Q3 as a hire car recently and other Audi drivers were suddenly letting me out at junctions, offering me parking spaces and even stopping to talk to me as if we'd known each other for years. I'm actually serious about this. It was weird. I add Jeep owners to this. They leave ducks on each other's Jeeps? Why? I only recently found out about the duck thing. I was walking out of the gas station and Therese, this lady, just staring in my Jeep, making little apprehensive motions as if she was going to get in. I ask if I can help her and she's saying she wants to leave a duck on the dash but she was afraid my dogs in the back seat might bite. She was so determined to give me, a random Jeep owner, a duck that she was standing in the cold, risking dog bites, not really as my boys are friendly goofballs but she didn't know that, and taking the risk that I might perceive this as someone trying to steal my truck duck with my dogs or any other conclusion I could jump to in the moment. Ultimately I took her little Dracula duck and chatted with her for a couple mins. Nice lady but very eccentric. The entire dash of her Jeep was covered in rubber ducks. Like a duck army large enough to make her Jeep float, no space to spare. Rubber ducks. I was wondering what sort of hillbilly redneck hunter's tradition was leaving real dead ducks in random trucks. Maybe I'm just dumb. Lol, yeah, us Jeepers have abandoned modern currency and reverted to wild game bartering. I was $2 short of filling my tank yesterday. This always confused me. I had an old beat-up Jeep as my first car and someone gave me a little purple ninja duck for my dash and I never understood why. It's still sitting on my desk today. Moral of the story: Jeep owners are a bunch of quacks. As someone who owns an iPhone, AirPods, Apple Watch, AirTags, Powerbeat Pros, and many Apple accessories, Apple, the Church of Jobs, is definitely a cult. I'm surprised Apple is still paying taxes and not declaring Tim Cook as a prophet. Nah man, as much as I found him annoying and self-important, Jobs could pull off full-blown cult leader. Tim Cook is just a hollow echo. Webkins was the cult back in the day. Gaia Online, Club Penguin. God, I haven't thought about Gaia in years. That's a hell of a throwback. Gaia was my first experience with seeing the writing on the wall for old internet versus new. The slow creep of pay-to-win mechanics and loot boxes. I remember mailing in my $2 to be met with disappointment. I do miss the early 2000s web though. I miss personalized profiles and all the fun. I had so many anime GIFs on my Gaia profile that I could lag you out. Met my first pedophile trying to groom me, good times. I made some good friends on that website that I still occasionally chat with. One sends me videos of his cats. 1010 experience. Adults who are obsessed with child actors. On that vein, child beauty pageants. Take my poor person award for this answer. I find beauty pageants insanely disgusting and exploitative. It's beyond disturbing to me that people are alright with strangers judging their children based on how well they pull off a swimsuit. Wait, they have a swimsuit competition for that shit? WTF? My condo association. No, I will not host the ritual at my place again this month, Dave. My wife worked her way up to president of our condo association. She's so anti-HOA that she has basically made it non-functional and doesn't enforce anything. One of our neighbors is also anti-HOA and he got elected as treasurer, so now they have a majority vote on the board and overrule the other voting member who is a snobby, hateful old lady. Edit. Thanks all for the kind words. I want to clarify, when I said that my wife has made the condo association non-functioning, I'm referring to the petty bullshit like welcome mat size and thickness that the previous HOA board seemed overly obsessed with. As a result, they ignored a lot of building maintenance and my wife is solely focusing on upgrading and fixing issues that were ignored for years or even decades. Edit 2. I think I've married Ron Swanson. My father made a point of becoming president of any condo association, called Strata, where I live. He didn't want power, he just wanted to make sure nobody else abused the position. At his previous apartment he was president for 5 or 6 years. He was pretty strict about maintenance. No matter how expensive, if something needed fixing, he levied for it and got it fixed. An older member, it was kind of a retirement home, really didn't like that. He wanted to pay as little as possible until he sold his unit. So when a roof levy came through, he went to every resident who was super old and kind of confused. He spun elaborate tales of corruption and got a couple dozen proxy votes in his pocket. He then used those proxy votes to vote himself in as president and vote my dad out. My father sold his unit less than 30 days later. He knew the guy was going to run the place into the ground and wanted out. Less than a year later, the whole apartment complex was sold off to a developer who was going to level it. Apparently the roof maintenance they decided not to do caused big problems they couldn't afford to fix. This is so common. Our old condo HOA got fined thousands by the city and almost sued by owners, because there was earthquake damage, bad roofs, hills sliding into the street below, and all sorts of structural issues because of a board president who didn't want to raise fees. He either did non-permitted repairs to save money or ignored expensive issues. Hint, if they're not saved for, they don't go away, they just get more and more difficult and expensive to fix. I don't want anyone telling me what color my front door can be, but actual maintenance costs money, and any decent homeowner would spend as much or more on maintenance without an HOA. The essential oils cure everything people. Those are cults according to Byte model. Jared Leto in general. He sells t-shirts that say yes, this is a cult. Also, it is the band's motto, sort of. Example, twitter.com. MLMS. The brainwashing is real. Edit. Wow, did not expect so many people to relate. Thanks for the awards. They might actually meet the criteria for being a cult, actually, depending on the group. Stan culture. The weird obsession over celebs is alarming. American political parties. Those insane pro-breastfeeding groups are very cult-like in my experience. Not bashing breastfeeding, I did it myself. But so many women in those groups talk about formula like it's literal poison, similarly those crazy free birth types. My mom had to give me formula because she couldn't produce enough for my fat ass. I was born 10 plus pounds, but all the Navy moms gave her shit blaming her and formula for me being fat. The Andrew Tate Fan Club. Crypto. As a PhD student, I have to say academia. It feels like a cult and MLM scheme at the same time. Edit to add more perspective, I just encountered too many people in their mid to late 30s doing their third postdoc with no life savings to their name, working 70 to 80-hour weeks on subpar pay over a decade. They were sold the image that someday they will get a tenured position, although the probability of it happening is just so low. Yet, some of them vehemently defend the sanctity of a career in academia and believe that they have a moral high ground in undertaking such a sacrifice whilst complaining about the side effects. To add to that, public-funded research paper paywalls, research paid by tax money is not accessible to taxpayers, lack of reproducible published results, endless cycle of writing grants and publishing with no end use, research fields that never translate well into industry, thereby making it hard, read impossible, to switch to industry. Make no mistake, academic research in itself is very much required for our society, renewable energy, studies on global warming, pharmacy, whatnot. But from the perspective of a sustainable career, it just doesn't feel right. I think, a man should save himself from the world, before he tries to save the world. Edit 2, for people asking me, who wrote the quote? I wrote it for this answer. College Greek life, pay money to join a group that has you dress the same, talk the same, chant in rhythm, and engage in humiliating degrading behavior. K-pop fanbase. Edit, this is the first time I got an award on. Thank you guys, I feel so whole. One person made 4 separate Twitter accounts to tell me to violently unalive because I said I didn't like Mamamoo, and that's racist apparently. Hit percussion. Yay, first it was, those drumline guys can't read real music. Then it was, look at me, I can play 4 mallet marimba. Then I went to try out for Phantom and a guy there was like, look at me, I can play 6 mallet marimba. Then he floated into the air above everyone and transcended into the light. Ducking pit percussion. SMH. Edit, thank you for the awards, musician fam. I read this 3 times and still have no clue what any of this means. First it was those drum line guys can't read real music. Music for something like a snare drum only shows rhythm, because the snare only really has one tone to play. Then it was look at me, I can play 4 mallet marimba. You hold 2 mallets in each hand so you can play more notes. A bit of an intermediate technique, but something most high school or college level players would be easily expected to do. Then I went to try out for Phantom. Phantom is the shortened name for Phantom Regiment, one of the premier drum and bugle corps of Drum Corps International. C is the highest level of competitive marching band, and he was like, look at me, I can play 6 mallet marimba. One more mallet in each hand. Then he floated into the air above everyone and transcended into the light op met Pit Jesus at Phantom Camp. Then I went to try out for Phantom. I prefer to interpret this as them playing for Phantom of the Opera. Just imagine if at the end of the musical, someone began to float off the ground while glowing. Haha, I actually did interpret it as Phantom of the Opera because the pit in my sphere or reference is an orchestra band pit of a theater stage. We didn't have marching band in high school, but we did have concert band. Actually was in the Air Cadets in Canada and we didn't have pit percussion in our marching bands. I had to look it up just to see what you guys were talking about.